UTMB, the Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc, the Super Bowl of trail running. If you've never tuned in before, don't follow the pro trail running scene, or just love it and want to soak up some more UTMB content in the lead up, then I'm here to highlight some runners you should be keeping your eyes on. This is part 1, covering the men's field. The women to watch will be coming next week. Small disclaimer, I know that typically the top 10 at UTMB is filled with French and European runners and that American men have performed poorly here in the past, but I wanted to highlight some guys who are well covered within the sport, meaning you can use this video as a springboard to find other content, race videos and podcasts featuring these runners. I also wanted to talk about guys with an interesting story, meaning that they either have an interesting history with this race or are coming in off the back of an injury or poor form. So, rather than just a list predicting my top 5, this is 5 runners to keep an eye on because they might win or blow up or surprise us in some way. Okay, so let's start with someone every ultra runner is probably already familiar with, Jim Warmsley. The 3-time Western States champion has had a rocky relationship with this race, a 5th place in 2017 being his best finish. The other 2 times he's towed the line have ended in DNFs. There's no doubt that Jim is one of the greatest runners in our sport's history, having won and set the course record at almost every race he enters. The only blemish on this record is UTMB. He also has an exciting front-running style that's made him very popular, a win or bust mentality that usually ends with a spectacular win or a devastating blow-up. So don't expect to see him sitting in a chase pack, slowly making his way up. Expect to see him at the front, setting the pace. What makes this year particularly interesting is that Jim has gone all in on UTMB. It'll be the first time he's not coming off the back of Western States, and it'll be the first time that he's made it his goal 100 miler for the year. His early season win in Madeira is further indication of how seriously he's taking technical mountain running. Compared with previous years in which he started the year ripping fast runnable races in the US, it shows that UTMB has always been the only thing on his mind this year. On top of all of this, he's moved and is now living in the Alps, training and living like the Europeans who have traditionally dominated this race. Considering all of this, I think Jim has to be the favourite this year, and whether he manages it or not, his progress in the race will certainly be exciting to follow. The 3-time UTMB champion and arguably the ultra running GOAT is back, Killian Johnny. I'd written a whole piece about how an inactive 2020 and 21 and a switch from sponsored athlete to business owner with the formation of his footwear brand had left a few people wondering if he was still all in on racing. But then he went and answered all those doubts by winning Hard Rock in impressive fashion, taking down fellow GOAT contender Francois Dehaene and setting another course record. However, it has actually been over a decade since his last win at UTMB, and half a decade since his last finish. Despite Francois Dehaene making it look easy last year, the Hard Rock UTMB double is also incredibly hard. It's worth noting that Killian almost managed this in 2017 with a Hard Rock win, followed by a 2nd place at UTMB. But with such a short turnaround, it will undoubtedly make it harder to compete here, especially with guys like Jim who will be arriving at the start with much fresher legs. Killian is a true great though, and it would be very hard to bet against him, especially in a European mountain race where he typically performs best. So here's where the list moves away from clear favourites and onto runners that provide us with an interesting story. They're either coming off an injury or a bad result, and as such offer us the chance to speculate on how they might fare. A chance for us to root for the underdog and a chance for us to celebrate a good performance, even if that just means a solid top 10 result rather than a win. Zach Miller is someone who definitely deserves your attention. One of the top guys in the sport circa 2014 to 17. He's won UTMB's little brother CCC, and following that he attempted the main event on 3 separate occasions, running all of them in typical Zach Miller style. Zach's style is what makes him probably my favourite ultra runner. He always tries to run out front from gun to line, giving every ounce of energy at all times. It's similar to Jim, however unlike Jim, and I don't mean this as a dig on Zach, Zach looks like he's actually trying. He looks like he's hurting. He looks like he's concerned about the others he's racing. You often see him looking over his shoulder, and it's relatable. It's how I imagine most runners would look if they were to find themselves leading a race. Jim makes running at the front look effortless. Zach makes it look real. So, why is this year so interesting? Well, Zach has had a couple of injury-filled years. Prior to this, he'd not finished an ultra since 2018, and he'd not won a race since 2016. But he used the pandemic to take a break from competition, get some much-needed surgery, relocate, and he changed the way he trains. He then came back earlier this year and won his first ultra in 6 years, the Andorra 100k, which he won running in the same way he always has, at the front from start to finish, to earn his spot once again on the UTMB start line. I'm super excited for his return. I'm eager to see if he'll be pushing with the front group and in it for the win, or whether he'll be happy to run his own race and be content to run smart for a top 10 finish, which considering the last few years would be an incredible achievement. If you want to see Zach in action, I'd highly recommend Billy Yang's 2015 video documenting Zach's CCC win. Plus, the other two runners featured in that film, Tim Tollefson and David Laney, are also returning to UTMB this year. David Laney narrowly missed out on making this list, but that does bring us neatly onto our next runner. Tim is the only American male to ever finish on the podium in this race, taking the third step in both 2016 and 17, as well as a second place in the 2015 CCC behind Zach. So he knows these mountains well, but following that third place in 2017, Tim didn't finish another 100 miler until the end of 2020, and he's often mentioned in discussions about amazingly talented ultra runners who burnt themselves out. However, he then made his 100-mile return with a win at the Javelina 100 and followed that with a 5th place at the 2021 Western States 100, which solidified a triumphant return to the top of the sport. So, do I think he can take a step or two up the rostrum at UTMB? Well, in my personal opinion, no. This field is just too strong, and Tim's blow-up at the 2022 Western States 100 has put a slight downturn to his recent return to form. He's got the talent though, and more importantly, the race smarts. Tim's always been good at running strategically and not getting caught up in the excitement of being in the lead pack. I'd be very surprised if we see him pushing the pace out front with Jim and Zach. In fact, I'd be surprised if we hear much about him throughout the whole live stream, as I think he'll run smart and spend much of the day outside of the top 10 before making his way through the field as people start to slow and drop. If Tim can nail his own nutrition and race strategy, then his arguably smarter approach, coupled with his previous podium experience, could see him taking that first American crown once again. The win might still be pushing it, as there's plenty of European runners boasting just as much experience on the course and race smarts that don't rely on pure pace. So even if the top 5 favourites blow up, I'd still struggle to put Tim higher than 3rd at best. I hope I'm wrong though. Tim seems like the nicest dude, and I thoroughly recommend listening to his recent appearance on the Trail Runner Nation podcast, where he discusses how he mentally copes with a race falling apart around him. Finally, we have Tom Evans, and I've saved him for last for a reason. Tom is going to be my fantasy free trail pick for the win, and if you're unfamiliar with Tom, I'll start by giving you some stats that back up why he's my pick. Tom has ran 13:41 for the 5k and 63:14 for the half marathon, both of which are faster than Jim Warmsley's personal bests, so he's fast over the shorter distances. Can he handle the longer stuff though? Yeah, he's finished 3rd at the 2019 Western States 100, running the fastest ever time for a non-American, and in his first ever outing, the race that started his career, he finished 3rd in the Marathon des Sables, a 6-day 250k stage race across the Sahara Desert. Okay, so he's pretty handy over the longer stuff then. What about the mountains? Well, Tom has also won UTMB's little brother CCC. In fact, Tom is arguably one of the best all-rounders in the sport. I'd go as far as saying, and without doing the research to back it up, that Tom is probably got the most impressive set of PBs from 5k through to 100 miles of any runner currently on the pro ultra scene. In fact, Sky Sports, the Olympic website, and Athletics Weekly have all written articles about Tom's versatility. Does that mean he's guaranteed the win? Well, no. Tom returned from injury earlier this year with a win at Trans Gran Canaria 62k, but he hasn't yet returned to 100-mile action. He was sidelined with an IT band issue that required surgery. It's the sort of issue that's known to flare up more over the longer distances, so I hope Tom doesn't have any reoccurring discomfort following this lengthy layoff. This isn't a return to 100-mile action with the goal of just finishing though. Tom is in it to win it. He's taken a similar approach to Jim and has spent the last 12 weeks of his build-up training in the Alps, on and around the course. I am really interested to see how he races this. Tom is smart and he won't panic if an early lead group pulls away from him. His military background gives me confidence that he'll be following his nutrition plan with utmost precision. This must be a reason for his incredible finish rate, which as far as I can tell is 100%. In summary, Tom is an incredibly talented and versatile athlete, and unlike the other 4 on this list, I have no idea how he's going to run this thing, and that, for me, is why it makes him must watch. Also, before anyone comments British bias, let me clarify, my head says Tom, but I am an absolute Zach Miller fanboy, so my heart says Zach. Tom's getting my fantasy pick though. Let me throw you a few honourable mentions. David Laney, as I mentioned before, Sage Canaday, if you're on YouTube you're probably familiar, Tyler Green, who's coming off back-to-back impressive performances at the last 2 Western States 100s. They'll all be looking to improve the reputation of American men in this race. Then there's the 2019 UTMB champ Pau Capel, and another former winner of the CCC, the 2019 champ Luis Alberto. This field is stacked, it's going to be an amazing spectacle, so please let me know your podium picks in the comments, remember to subscribe, and don't miss my preview of the women's field that's coming next week. Then tune in on the UTMB website or the UTMB YouTube channel at 6 PM local time, August the 26th, to watch the main event. Enjoy.